The Newhart finale was one of Bob Newhart's boldest TV moments. The finale has become so famous in part because it offered a rare moment of real surprise from a taped primetime TV sitcom. Open any search engine you like and type in the words "Best TV Finales." Scroll through the dozens, heck, hundreds of articles written about which show really stuck the landing, delivering the kind finish that fans still talk about. The Newhart finale should be on nearly all of those lists. For its last few minutes alone, Newhart deserves a merited status on every roundup of best TV endings, best TV moments, funniest pranks, you name it. In perpetuity, what makes it an all-timer? One knockout of a punchline. For 8 seasons, from 1982 to 1990, Bob Newhart entertained millions on Newhart, playing Dick Loudon, a how-to-book author and the co-owner of a quaint Vermont inn with his wife Joanna, Mary Fran. The success of Newhart was especially remarkable given that Newhart had already had a long run on TV in The Bob Newhart Show, which ran for 6 seasons, also on CBS from 1972 to 1978. He had spent those 6 years playing Bob Hartley, a Chicago psychologist who coped with cookie patients with the help of his loving wife Emily, Suzanne Pleshette. These two characters, Loudon and Hartley, both drew on Newhart's stand-up comedy persona, the stammering, muttering everyman delivering hilariously deadpan reactions to the madness of modern life. The Newhart finale bridged the gap between the two shows with an ending that had Dick Loudon getting knocked out by a golf ball in Vermont and then waking up in a Chicago bedroom as Bob Hartley with Emily by his side. The implication was that the entire run of Newhart had been Bob's dream. On the night of the finale's tapping, the Newhart studio audience whooped in delight. There is some important context for this joke. The TV drama, Dallas, had a few years earlier negated an entire season by retroactively turning it into one long dream sequence. The medical drama, St. Elsewhere, also had controversially ended its entire 6-year run with a finale that suggested the whole show had been an autistic character's dream. Newhart was in part spoofing those two shows. Newhart always said that his wife, Ginny, had the idea for this joke, though the Newhart writers have claimed ownership for themselves. In the years since, the Newhart finale has become so famous that it, too, had been parodied and paid homage to in several late-night TV sketches. There are so many reasons it hadn't been forgotten, but one big one is that it offered a rare moment of real surprise from a taped primetime television sitcom. In an interview for the Television Academy's Archive of American Television, Newhart described all the machinations that went into preserving the finale's secret. The writers included a fake ending in the script in which Dick met God after getting knocked out by the golf ball. The showbiz press ran with that news, speculating on who Newhart would get to play God. The show's production team built a Hartley bedroom set in secret and kept it hidden until they shot the scene, knowing that as soon as the studio audience saw the decor, they would start applauding. Also for the archive, Pleshette said she had a code name she had to use whenever she called into the office to arrange her appearance so the news wouldn't leak. On filming day, she had to hide out in the trailer for 6 hours so she wouldn't be spotted by audience members. Because Newhart and Pleshette weren't able to rehearse on the set, she worried she would forget where the light fixtures were in the Hartley's bedroom. But as soon as the scene was done, Pleshette said, "I knew it was a piece of television history." Still, she left early from the wrap party because Newhart was not her show and didn't want to disrespect Fran, who she felt deserved to take her own bows. In fact, sticklers for narrative continuity in TV shows have complained that the Newhart finale is somewhat unfair to Fran and to the rest of the show's cast because it implies their characters are less important than the ones from the Bob Newhart show. In an interview with Jason Zinoman for the New York Times back in 2019, Newhart said of the finale, "Some people felt cheated. They devoted 8 years of their life and it turns out none of them existed." When asked for his response to that, Newhart said simply, "Okay." Newhart was a comedian, first and foremost. He knew that was funny. Pleshette described her nerves on the day she showed up to shoot the finale and how while they were covered with bedsheets and holding for their cue, Newhart squeezed her hand and said the words that should be inscribed on his tombstone. Wait for the laugh. George Robert Newhart, September 5, 1929 to July 18, 2024, was an American comedian and actor. He was known for his deadpan and stammering delivery style. Beginning as a stand-up comedian, he transitioned his career to acting in television. He received numerous accolades, including 3 Grammy Awards, an Emmy Award, and a Golden Globe Award. He received the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor in 2002. Newhart came to prominence in 1960 when his record album of comedic monologues, The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, became a bestseller and reached #1 on the Billboard Pop Album chart. It remains the 20th best-selling comedy album in history. The follow-up album, The Button-Down Mind Strikes Back, was also a success, and the two albums held the Billboard #1 and #2 spots simultaneously. Newhart hosted a short-lived NBC variety show titled The Bob Newhart Show, 1961, before starring as Chicago psychologist Robert Hartley on The Bob Newhart Show from 1972 to 1978, and then as Vermont innkeeper Dick Loudon on series Newhart from 1982 to 1990. He also had two short-lived sitcoms in the 1990s, Bob and George and Leo. Newhart acted in films such as Catch-22, 1970, Cold Turkey, 1971, In and Out, 1997, and Elf, 2003. He also voiced Bernard in the Disney animated films The Rescuers, 1977, and The Rescuers Down Under, 1990. Newhart played Professor Proton on the CBS sitcom The Big Bang Theory from 2013 to 2018, for which he received a Primetime Emmy Award. Newhart was born George Robert Newhart on September 5, 1929 in Oak Park, Illinois. His parents were Juliet Pauline (née Burns, 1901 to 1994), a housewife, and George David Newhart, 1899 to 1987, a part owner of a plumbing supply business. His mother was of Irish descent, while his father was of German and Irish descent. He went by his middle name, Bob, to avoid confusion with his father George. The family name Newhart is of German origin. One of his grandmothers was from St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. He had 3 sisters. Newhart was educated at Roman Catholic schools in the Chicago area, including St. Catherine of Siena Grammar School in Oak Park, and attended St. Ignatius College Prep High School, graduating in 1949. He then enrolled of Loyola University Chicago, from which he graduated in 1952 with a bachelor's degree in business management. Newhart was drafted into the U.S. Army and served in the U.S. States during the Korean War as a clerk until being discharged in 1954. He briefly attended Loyola University Chicago School of Law, but did not complete a degree, in part, he said, because he was asked to behave unethically during an internship. After the war, Newhart worked for United States Gypsum as an accountant. He later said that his motto, "That's close enough," and his habit of adjusting petty cash imbalances with his own money showed he did not have the temperament to be an accountant. In 1958, Newhart became an advertising copywriter for Fred A. Niles, a major independent film and television producer in Chicago. There, he and a co-worker entertained each other with long telephone calls about absurd scenarios, which they later recorded and sent to radio stations as audition tapes. When the co-worker ended his participation by taking a job in New York, Newhart continued the recordings alone, developing his type of routine. Dan Sorkin, a radio station disc jockey who later became the announcer's sidekick on Newhart's NBC series, introduced Newhart to the head of talent at Warner Bros. Records. The label signed him in 1959, only a year later, after it was formed, based solely on those recordings. Newhart expanded his material into a stand-up routine that he began to perform at nightclubs. Newhart became famous mostly on the strength of his audio releases in which he played a solo straight man. Newhart's routine was to portray one end of a conversation, usually a phone call, played the comedic straight man and implying what the other person was saying. Newhart's 1960 comedy album, The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, was the first comedy album to make #1 on the Billboard charts and peaked at #2 in the UK Albums chart. It won 2 Grammy Awards, Album of the Year and Best New Artist. Newhart told a 2005 interviewer for PBS's American Masters that his movie stand-up routine was Abe Lincoln vs. Madison Avenue, which appears on his album. In the routine, a slick promoter has to deal with Lincoln's reluctance to agree to efforts to boost his image. Chicago TV director and featured comedian Bill Daly, who was Newhart's castmate on The Bob Newhart Show, suggested the routine to him. Newhart became known for an international stammer in service to his unique combination of politeness and disbelief at what he was supposedly hearing. Newhart used the delivery throughout his career. A follow-up album, The Button-Down Mind Strikes Back, was released 6 months later and won Best Comedy Performance Spoken Word that year. Subsequent comedy albums included Behind the Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, 1961, The Button-Down Mind on TV, 1962, Bob Newhart Faces Bob Newhart, 1964, The Windmills Are Weakening, 1965, This Is It, 1967, Best of Bob Newhart, 1971, and Very Funny Bob Newhart, 1973. Years later, he released Bob Newhart's Off the Record 1992, The Button Down Concert 1997, and Something Like This 2001, an anthology of his 1960s Warner Bros. Albums. On December 10, 2015, publicist and comedy album collector Jeff Abraham revealed that a lost Newhart track from 1965 about Paul Revere existed on a one-of-a-kind acetate which he owns. The track made its world premiere on episode 163 of the Comedy on Vinyl podcast.